What is up, team? Welcome back to the Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast. I'm Pat Kane, and folks, we're learning. We're learning quickly that with the new coach in charge, you can't put away the equipment too soon. You can't assume that the offseason's here because you can't afford to even miss a beat with this guy in charge. And he proved once again today, Rick Pitino, by landing perhaps the highest rated recruit, the biggest recruit in St. John's over the past 20 seasons in Simeon Wilcher. So, of course, I brought my good friend Cole Lashaw on to discuss the addition of Simeon, as well as some other news and tidbits that seemingly don't stop coming now that Rick Pitino's in charge. Cole, how you feeling today?
Amazing, dude. What a great day. Wow, so much fun. We thought we had a full boat, and Rick Pitino made room for one more. I don't know, man. It's amazing. We'll obviously talk about, what an insane addition Simeon is to this team, and what a tremendous player, and how that sort of changes expectations for this coming year. But I think also not only how good of a player he is for this coming year and how great that is, but also what he now does for the future of St. John's basketball. Whether he's good enough to be a one and done, or if he's around for a few more years than that. That's obviously tremendous for our future. But I think this is also sort of Rick Pitino sort of planting his flag in the ground and saying, I'm still that guy. I'm still here. My fastball still tops at 100 miles per hour, and I haven't lost one little dip of velo from that. It's amazing that we thought we had our scholarships completely full and we didn't have room for another guy, and he's still able to get a kid who's a borderline 5-star talent. It's just mind-boggling. So.
Yeah, his fastball is still there. We saw the video footage of him prepping for the first pitch coming up in the Subway Series. And fittingly, he goes and shows it on the recruiting front as well, taking a guy who was committed to North Carolina, borderline McDonald's All-American recruit, a huge addition late in the game. And like you said, out of nowhere, seemingly, found space somehow. We'll find out at some point how he finds space, but the good ones find a way to get it done. That's a big boy problem, and St. John's has been waiting God knows how long to have some big boy problems like that. So we'll waste no more time. We'll throw up the newest graphic to the collection. Simeon Wilcher himself. Oh, we can't lose Cole, though. Give me 1 second. There he is. Simeon Wilcher, 6'4" freshman, 4-star recruit out of New Jersey. Last year, he averaged 15.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 5.6 assists, 1.6 steals. He's a very athletic guard. He's got great size for his position. Some might even say he possesses some positional versatility. We'll ask Cole about that in a second. He's got great pedigree, a well-rounded guard, top 40 recruit, originally committed out of North Carolina, like we mentioned before. His brother CJ plays for Nebraska currently. Simeon was 17-0 in his career in a high school state tournament games. That's an amazing stat in its own right. And he's the highest rated recruit we've had since young Rashid Jordan in 2013. He's a recruit at a Roselle Catholic, a 6'4" do-it-all guard, capable of changing the dimension of this year's team, and without question enhances the potential of St. John's for year number 2 and future years. Can't say enough how exciting it is to get a guy like Simeon this late in the game. At any point, to really sign a guard like this is amazing. Cole, any more thoughts on Simeon?
Dude, I one thing, you also brought up Rashid Jordan. One thing I love is big, tall, big-bodied point guards. I don't know why. I've always loved tall point guards. So having a kid who can handle the rock like he can at 6'4" is awesome. Aggressive downhill scorer, dynamic facilitator. That dude. Like I said before, kind of like borderline 5-star kid. If you look at 247 in their rankings, I think they currently have him at 34, Rivals 31, ESPN 28. But if you look at 247, they allow you to sort of look back at sort of how their kids' rankings change over time. And Simeon sort of started to fall down. He was originally at about this time last year, 12, 8, 15, vacillating in between that top 10, top 15 area. And he, I think, had an ankle injury right at the beginning of the live period. So kind of really an important time to sort of, as far as evaluating goes. And that's when his ranking started to slide. So that's why I keep saying sort of borderline 5-star kid. I think he is legitimately that talented. I went through some of his high school game-by-game stats that he had, and two like really huge games that Roselle Catholic played last year were against Mount Verdi and St. Paul VI out of Virginia. Those two teams were ranked 2nd and 7th overall in ESPN's final top 25 ranking. And in those two games, Simeon put up 21 points in both, 21, 3 rebounds and 2 assists against Mount Verdi, and 21, 4 rebounds and 6 assists against St. Paul. So, you know, obviously it's tough looking at stats when they're transitioning from the high school to the college level, but that's him playing against the cream of the crop, the top level high school teams, and he put up numbers like that. I mean, he literally is that good of a scorer, and he's that also great of a facilitator. So we had talked about when Jordan Dingle committed and what an amazing get that was, and how we had, you know, a do-it-all guard who could score. And we were saying kind of from a point guard depth chart standpoint, we kind of thought we would need Dingle to handle a lot of the point guard responsibilities along with Dennis and potentially Cruz Davis. I think this kind of helps Jordan move into a little more off-ball role. Obviously, I'm sure he'll be asked to handle the ball a lot, but I think Simeon, coming from North Carolina, where he left following Elliot Cordeaux reclassifying, it's clear that Simeon was looking for more point guard specific time. And I think for sure he'll get a lot of that here with Pitino. Some other just like things I wrote down. There's a sort of day in the life video of him that's available on YouTube. And it was just like awesome to watch that and see like we talked about it previously with some of the other recruits. Like he just seems like he's a really good kid with a good head on his shoulders. He talked about one of his favorite things about basketball is getting to spend time with like the little kids that come to his games, and how at the end of the day, when he hangs up his cleats, he wants to get into like a coaching role or, you know, have his own AAU program and do camps because he loves the interaction with like younger kids, which is so awesome. One of the things I thought was such a great fit with Pitino, I think going back to that Pitino opening day press conference when we hired him, and he said, I need players. One of the biggest things he said about character kids is I need guys who love basketball as much as Rick Pitino loves basketball, that you have to be all in on the sport. And in this sort of day in the life video of Simeon, the first words out of his mouth was, I love basketball. And I was like, oh, perfect fit, Rick Pitino. I think really the only negative I saw in all the things I've read and looked at is that he's kind of at the moment a streaky 3-point shooter. He's still a huge threat from deep, but like can get hot and can get cold. I think he averaged 1.4 made threes per game in high school last year. But I mean, Rick loves guards who can dribble and facilitate, who can defend. Simeon can do all that, and he can shoot the 3 too. So perfect fit with Rick Pitino. Couldn't be happy.
Wow. Folks, if you're not already, please go follow Cole on Twitter. I mean, can we talk about some nuggets he just dropped right there? The stats, the in-depth analysis, going into the archive, finding some high school opponents, and some just some deep diving right there. So Cole, great stuff. Can't say enough about that. That's awesome work. You know, I'm naturally hesitant for whatever reason. When I see a combo guard label, I'm always hesitant to believe those guys can come in and facilitate and handle the point duties, especially early on. And just, you know, maybe I'm wrong in that natural hesitation, but the more I've watched of Simeon, and I can only, you know, watch what's out there. I can't go watch games that already happened that I wasn't there for. But what's available online, the more I watch, the more I see a natural inclination for him to distribute and to look for his teammates. And he surely has a good enough handle to be a lead guard. So I am interested to see how that translates. And of course, like you said, he's obviously going to be looking for playing time. I believe Zach Braziller mentioned that he wasn't guaranteed anything in terms of role or playing time, but you know, we'll see how that plays out. I do think regardless of what position you put him on in the box score, he could play a multitude of spots out there, 1, 2, or 3. He's got the size to defend on the wing, and the handle to play at the 1, and then everything else in between. Like you said, doesn't look to be the greatest sharpshooter from 3, but he's got a solid looking shot, and with repetition and reps, that's the same thing. I just said it twice. Speaking of repetition, who knows where he could become as a shooter in his college career. Kind of reminded me, you said big point guards. He kind of reminded me of 2 other New Jersey high school guards, Tyler Ennis and Isaiah Briscoe in some regards. You know, big physical guards who weren't, you know, explosive athletes, but really good quality athletes who just got where they wanted to go and could handle the ball and handle the game. And, you know, maybe not, you know, like I said, one position out there, but multidimensional. If he's anywhere close to those two guys, we'll be happy, I think.
Dude, and how much did you just fall in love with him and his family when you saw that tweet from Zagoria that they spent over 2 hours with Lou Carnesecca meeting with him on campus?
Sweet Lou, man. Sweet Lou strikes again. He's just the godsend that keeps on giving. And, of course, you sit and talk with Lou for a couple hours, you're going to come sign with St. John's, unless you're Sylvan Landisburg. But let's not bring up the bad times since St. John's passed. Yeah, that is funny because his dad, and I wasn't at the game, but you could hear during the Nebraska game last year, his dad going back and forth with the crowd, and I am glad to have him on our side. Now he looks like he's going to be full of excitement. It looks like he's passed on that passion down to his son, like you said. That will translate well to a guy who Coach Pitino said it himself day one. He wants guys who love the game, and that's obviously transferred to all the Wilcher boys.
It's cool. I was listening to some old stuff from when Simeon first committed to North Carolina, and one of the guys had a interview with Simeon's dad, Sergio, and two very interesting points that Sergio made that I thought you could then translate and apply to St. John's was he wasn't really concerned with the facilities at North Carolina. He said the hoop is 10 feet tall no matter where you're playing at. And another thing was how much he personally appreciates the history of the game of basketball, and that he thinks that Sergio views it as a travesty that kids these days don't appreciate those traditions and stuff like that. So sort of connected that with the Lou meeting and tied it all together. And it's just just such beautiful things to hear come from a guy, a dad who really get it. So
the dads and the moms, the parents really make these decisions, and regardless of how relevant Coach Pitino was in the minds of high school recruits 2 years ago, when it comes down to meeting a kid and his family and sitting down and talking about your options, Rick Pitino obviously resonates extremely well with people of that generation, especially hoopers, lifetime hoopers. And there's another classic example. So can't wait to hear Mr. Wilcher in the crowd next year, Carnesecca Arena. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we've only got a handful of games this year, but it's going to be a wild show, I do believe.
I'm sure we'll hear him at MSG too. If he could yell like he did in that Nebraska game, then we'll hear him at MSG too.
Hopefully, I'll be tuning in. Here is an updated depth chart again, folks. Don't kill the messenger here. There is only so much I could do here without being in on the meetings and the discussions, and there's a unbelievable amount of ways this could play out. But here's just my best guess, throwing it against the wall right here. Point guard, I do believe if it started today, all 14 guys available. Danis would be the starting point guard. Wilcher backing him up, Dingle getting some spot minutes, and Davis getting some spot minutes as well. Dingle starting at the 2. I believe that will be the case regardless of who's starting at the 1 or the 3 or pretty much anywhere else. Dingle at the 2. Naheem Aline behind him, either at the 2 or the 3, depending what you want to call the position, but not the primary ball handler. Wilcher will also see minutes there. Taylor, I think, will be a deep look sub there at the 2. You could also say Conway or Dunlap or Luis, but at that point you're kind of mixing positions. Doesn't really matter. Small forward, I think Taylor or Luis will be the starter there, but you could easily put up an argument for Aline or anybody else. You can play 3 guards with Danis, Dingle, and Wilcher in some capacity. At the 4, whoever's not starting at the 3 will be in contention up front there. You could also play bigger, more traditionally with Slazinski or Ejiofor. And at the 5, it's obviously going to be Joel starting with Ejiofor backing him up. Cole, anything pop out to you about this depth chart?
Positional versatility, baby. Trademark it.
It's almost too much. It makes it impossible for this exercise.
Makes it impossible to write down a depth chart. No, I think one thing for sure I want to say is I agree with you. Day 1 starting lineup, I think the depth chart looks exactly like this for Stony Brook, for potentially the Michigan game. I do think eventually, as we get closer maybe to Big East play later through the out-of-conference schedule, I think Simeon Wilcher will take over the starting point guard role from Danis Jenkins. I think he is that good, and anybody who just wants to look at it as him being a 34th ranked kid in the nation as a freshman, that's not the case. He is much better than his ranking tells, and I think it's very realistic for him to take over, even with how much love Rick Pitino probably has for Danis Jenkins following him over from Iona, and how much familiarity Danis has with the the program that Rick's trying to implement here at St. John's. I think Wilcher will take over at some point. Besides that, like we've talked about before, when looking at the depth chart, there's just so much versatility that any of these guys could be starting at any of these different positions. I think, Naheem Aline will play a lot in small ball lineups at the 3. I think, Taylor and Louise will both see time at the 4. I know you like to make fun of me for how much in love I am with the idea of big, powerful lineups with Joel and Zuby at the 4 and the 5. I think we'll see some of that, especially against bigger teams. But like we said, like we joke about, just there's so much versatility with all of these that we can slot them into any one of these positions, and still
so much versatility. We'll get into some creative lineups in a second. Before we do, I want to go back to your point about you think Simeon will eventually take the starting spot, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you think that will be because Danis is playing poorly? We look to go. We don't have to say poorly or not poorly, but do you think it'll be more of Simeon just is too good to keep on the bench, or is it
exactly the way you just put it? Won't have anything to do with Danis's play. It will be Wilcher is showing in whatever type of, I don't even want to say limited minutes, because he's not going to have limited minutes even from day one. But even coming off the bench in whatever role he's playing, it will be that apparent from day one how talented he is. And it's like, at some point, he'll take over that starting role, in my opinion.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Okay, we're going to play a little game now because we got so much positional versatility. I threw together just a handful of lineups here, some of them far-fetched, some of them conventional. We're going to play a game of will this lineup line up? All right, so this first lineup I got is the Cole special. All right, will this lineup line up? Point guard, Jordan Dingle. Shooting guard, Glenn Taylor. Small forward, RJ Luis. Power forward, Zuby Ojefor, and center, Joel Soriano. Will we ever see this group of 5 on the court?
Yes, this lineup will line up. I would bet my life that we see this lineup at some point. Like we've talked about before, I for sure envision times when Dingle is going to be asked to handle the ball, especially before today's news of Wilcher committing. I expected to see a lot of that. I think, too, as he's sort of auditioning for the next level, Dingle being somewhat of a smaller size guard, I think he will want to showcase him somewhat in a point guard facilitator role, even if it's not something he really succeeded that much at Penn. I think we will for sure see Jordan handling the ball a little bit. And then we've talked previously about having those small ball lineups with Glenn Taylor and RJ Luis at the 3 and the 4.
Cool. We're going to get to the small ball lineups in a second. Right?
But I think for sure we can see those guys also. They have enough versatility to play the 2 and the 3 as well, whether it's Taylor at the 2 or Luis at the 2. And then, as much as I remember in our first podcast following the Zuby and Jordan Dingle commitments, we kind of said we weren't really sure how Zuby and Joel could fit on the court at the same time, especially after watching some tape on Zuby. It didn't seem like, obviously Joel has never really shown the ability or knack to shoot 3-pointers. I think he only has like 3 attempted in his entire career. Zuby didn't really show a lot of ability to shoot jump shots. But then we get, I think it was as soon as Zuby signed, Rick Pitino immediately comments about how good of a jump shot he has. And then I think it was in Braziller's article where Pitino was again sort of singing the praises of Zuby's ability to shoot the ball, talking specifically about how he's pushing Joel to have to shoot the 3-pointer. And he mentioned specifically we will see Zuby and Joel share the court at the same time at some point this year. So, yeah, I would not be surprised at all to see this lineup.
Yep, I know you're seeing it in your sleep. You're seeing the 2 big men play high-low, setting screens, rolling the basket. It's exciting. I thought this lineup in particular was kind of very fascinating. 5 guys on an individual basis that excite me and their positional versatility, but in this group would be like very, very vastly different than I think they'd play with any other combination. There's not really a standstill shooter on the wing. Dingle would, of course, be running the show, but then he's surrounded by 4 other guys who are more get to the rim guys than spread out guys. But needless to say, I think we'll see some lineups with Zuby and Joel both playing inside. All right, we'll go to our next lineup here. Will this lineup line up? We've got, again, Dingle at the point. This time he's joined by Aline at the 2, Brady Dunlap at the 3, Sean Conway as a small ball 4, and Joel at the 5.
Remind me, how tall is Conway?
I believe he's listed at 6'5", 215.
Okay, I was going to say maybe 6'7". Yeah, 6'5". That's a small 4. So that would be my only concern. I mean, I think Brady, though, is much taller, but obviously much slighter at this point in his career.
Correct.
I don't think Brady can really play a lot of 4 as a freshman, even though I think Braziller mentioned in his first article on Brady Dunlap that that's the long-term plan, is to have him put on weight and be able to play
down the line. I think that's.
I think for sure we'll see time again with Dingle running the point and Aline playing off ball with him. Again, would it surprise me, especially sort of end of game, we need a 3 type situation? Like wouldn't surprise me at all to see 3 shooters in Aline, Dunlap, and Conway, and a 4th tremendous shooter in Dunlap who's handling the ball.
Sure.
It wouldn't surprise me at all to see a lineup like this. But from a defensive standpoint, I struggle to see Brady and Conway on the court at the same time trying to defend 3s and 4s, but together.
This was, to me, the opposite from the 2 through 4. The opposite of the last lineup we had. We had Dingle and Joel at the 1 and the 5, but then we had 3 shooters here. Of course, you could slide in Quinn as the 4 as a shooter. You could, throw in Louise, who's also a quality shooter. Now we've got Wilcher as well to put Dingle at the 2 or the 3 alongside him.
I like that lineup a lot better with Quinn Slazinski at the 4.
Much more traditional. Yeah. I'm having fun here. And folks who can't see these lineups, please follow along on YouTube. These visuals, they're getting a little bit better each time, so keep on coming back for more.
Pat's graphics will blow your mind.
The next lineup, we've got Dennis Jenkins at the 1, Naheem Aline at the 2, Brady Dunlap at the 3, Quinn at the 4, and your guy Zuby at the 5. Will this lineup line up?
But there's no question we'll see this lineup at some point. Zuby, like we previously have said, I think will play predominantly a backup center role. There will be times where he plays the 4 along with Joel at the 5, but I think especially from watching some of the highlights and watching specifically that game against Indiana, he really excelled at playing a backup 5 role, and I can for sure see him getting a lot of time when Joel needs a spell this year. I think Pitino really wants Clint Slazinski to play that sort of stretch 4 role, and then if you also had a shooter in Dunlap on the court at the same time, along with Aline to sort of space, and then Dennis creating for the 3 shooters around the rim, and Zuby they can run pick and roll action and have Zuby on the roll to catch lobs. I for sure see them playing this.
And I think what's cool about this lineup is it's exciting in itself, but you could put this entire 5 on the bench and find 5 other guys who would probably get you more excited. It just kind of, for me, illustrates how talented and how exciting our roster as a whole. These are pretty much 5 guys who, you could put out Dingle at the 1 alongside Simeon, or the 1-2 combo. You could have Luis and Taylor and have Joel in the 5, and you would, be probably more excited. To me, there's
hockey line
talent we've got. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do one more here. Will this lineup line up? Point guard Dennis, 2 guard Dingle, 3 guard Wilcher, 4 guard Luis, Joel at the center. So Joel with 4 playmakers around him.
You did take the words right out of my mouth there by saying 4 playmakers around him. I was going to say there's a lot of guys on the court at the same time who are all kind of ball dominant. Like you want to think like Wilcher, I struggle to see him. Not that I struggle to see him playing off ball, because that's not the case at all. Like he's certainly shown the knack to be able to hit open shots. And I'm sure Rick Pitino will sort of implement that sort of 2 different guards, like a Dennis and a Dingle on the court at the same time, where they're kind of both sort of sharing ball handling responsibilities, kind of how Walter Clayton Jr. and Dennis did last year. But I having all 3 on the court at the same time kind of gets a little weird. And then RJ Luis, who also sort of can create for himself off the dribble. I struggle again to see this one a little bit more than some of the others, but positional versatility, baby. Nothing surprises me.
I know. It is fascinating to imagine all the different possibilities. I had fun putting these together. None of these lineups would be ones that I figure would be, predominantly used, but in a pinch here or there, maybe it could happen. Before we head out, Cole, we've got some additional news. We would be, silly not to mention St. John's got a head start on their 2024 class. They went overseas across the pond to pick up a foreign player. Lefteris Leotopoulos, come at me in the comments if you will, a 2024 6'4" guard out of Greece. Last year in his league, he averaged 23 points, 7.7 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 1.4 steals. He shot 36% from 3. He's a very versatile player. Looks like he can play either guard spot, maybe even on the wing a little bit. He's got good size and passing instincts. Recruited as well by Virginia, Stanford, and Princeton. He's considered a top 3 Greek prospect for his age, and he knew of Coach Pitino from his time coaching in Greece. This is the first recruit to commit to St. John's for the 2024 class. Lefteris has a reputation as a heady guard with solid potential, could potentially see time at the 1 through 3 positions at St. John's. Cole, I know you've been diving deep on the tape as well on lefty here. He's actually a righty, so we got to make sure we get that squared away. Could be confusing, could work in our advantage when the team's calling out, lefty, and they start forcing him right, and there he goes right by him. Thoughts on Lefteris?
Could potentially see time at the 1 through 3. So you're telling me he has more positional versatility than we need?
Don't get me started on a depth chart, Aaron. I'm trying to, take it easy for now.
Dude, like lightning fast release on his shot, court vision, ability to move without the ball, ability to create off the dribble, willingness to defend and rebound. Those are all positives. I mean, it's always kind of hard to judge when you're looking at tape especially tape overseas, like how high the level of competition is, but you could see all those skills that he has and easily see how those type of skills can translate to the Big East. So, definitely excited for an addition. And Rick has all the Greek connections in the world, so I'm not going to second guess Rick pulling any Greek folks onto our roster. I think for anybody like also trying to do their own like deep dive, there's a really great YouTube video, Lefteris Leotopoulos scouting reports from 2022. They really do a great job on that video of sort of going through all of the different aspects of his game and how he's great.
You're not just in it for the techno beats in the background, are you?
No. Thankfully, this was one without the techno beats. So,
okay. All right. I know we saw a few of those.
Our Red Storm Rapid Reaction podcast fans say that we don't work hard for them and that we don't dive deep into the YouTube scouting report videos, because I listened to way too much European techno looking at tape of Mr. Leotopoulos. So my ears were bleeding, but it was all worth it so that I could, provide all the knowledge and alacrity for you folks.
Oh, there you go. Wow. Bring out the vocab too. I like that, Cole. Any closing thoughts, Cole? I know it might be, we might think this will be putting away the equipment for a while now. Who knows? The next time you talk might be for a while, but until then, anything else you want to bring?
Yeah, the way Rick Pitino works, we'll probably be having another emergency pod in like a week or so when we get another huge commitment. No, but I think that like the only things right now are just, so insanely happy to have both Simeon and Lefteris like coming into the family. I think I'd like to give a big up yours to both the UNC and Seton Hall fan bases, and also Armando Baycott, like right there, buddy. Calling out Simeon for running from, the hard work, like couldn't be the farthest thing. Like he's actually stepping into it with Rick Pitino.
Run to us. That's fine. We'll take the run.
Players harder than Mr. Pitino, and watching all of these kids, every single recruit and transfer that's come on board, watching them grow over the next few years under Coach Pitino is just going to be amazing. And the only final thing I did want to say is just to look back on the entire work that Rick Pitino has done and just appreciate the coach that we have now. I mean, we have, according to 247's rankings, the 6th best transfer portal recruiting class coming in. And I think you can arguably make the opinion that we have maybe a top half of the Big East freshman recruiting class coming in now that we have both Simeon and Brady Dunlap. Looking at some of the other Big East classes, UConn has the 4th highest. They have an amazing freshman class coming in. Xavier and Sean Miller have the 16th, Marquette at 28th, and Georgetown at 46th in the nation. Both don't look that crazy different than what we have just with Simeon and Brady Dunlap. So, I mean, what we've done in 2 months is just, mind-boggling. And, I just never thought.
Masterclass. Just bask in it, folks. So enjoy it while you can.
Somebody go check and make sure like Rick's taking like all his multivitamins, or like get a vampire to like bite him on the neck or something. Because I need him to coach St. John's for the next like 100 years, because he's just the best. So
I know I miss it already, and it hasn't even started yet. Anyway, folks, thank you, Cole. Thank you all for listening. Please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Please follow along on Spotify or Apple Podcast. For Hubert Davis, this has been Pat Cade and Cole Ladshaw, Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast.